Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Joey Mure and Russ Morgan, who are founders and partners at Wealth Without Wall Street. Joey and Russ, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having us.
Mike, man, it's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, I really love, it's kind of like a little pet passion of mine when I see names of businesses. It's like, okay, how descriptive is that of the service? And how did you come up with that and things like that? So Wealth Without Wall Street sounds so intriguing because people tie the word wealth to Wall Street. And then there's this big, gray area of we don't know how that works. And we hope that we have money to retire. And so when you guys are focusing on wealth without Wall Street, I'm super, super intrigued. So give us a little bit of your background and your entrepreneurial journey. And let's dive into some of your teaching points.
Cool. Yeah, Mike, that's awesome. So this is Joey, and I started in the mortgage business back in 2003. And I thought I was kind of following the same way Wall Street and everybody else teaches to get to financial success. I wouldn't have say financial freedom because I just didn't even know that term at the time. And I would have tied financial success to increasing your income. And within a relatively short amount of time, I started having a lot more income than I anticipated. And yet I didn't feel like I was any more fulfilled financially, if that makes sense. I basically looked up at the end of the year and I'd say, man, I made a lot of money last year. In fact, I was making over $300,000 a year, but yet I didn't see any way out of the rat race, if you will. Now, fast forward, and this is about 2009. Russ and I had been friends for a couple of years. He got introduced to a new idea and he said, hey, man, you really need to read this book. And I was like, okay. He said, by the way, it's $20. And I was like, okay, well, Russ, you want me to read the book? You could at least buy the book for me. This is low budget. You're charging me. How bad are you doing?
This is the way this goes, Mike. He's always throwing me underneath the bus. I just wanted to invest in his future. Come on.
You gave a book recommendation. I don't need to buy the dumb book for you. I saw a movie last week too. Do I need to buy that for you as well?
Exactly. I just hand delivered a book to the guy. He could have went on Amazon and bought it and waited 2 days. I gave him same day service.
but hey, here's the good news. If I wouldn't have bought it, I probably wouldn't have read it. So for that, I am grateful that he charged me the $20. It was infinitely more valuable than that $20. So as I was reading this book, it dramatically changed my outlook on what financial success or financial freedom even was. And I started implementing some of those things that we're talking about in the book and working with Russ directly as essentially my financial coach. And over 4 years, Mike, I can tell you it got heavier and heavier and heavier like this. I was compelled to say, this has been so dramatic difference for me and my family. I need to share this with other people, right? This is not something that is everyday knowledge, and more people need to know about this. And by the way, Russ, you suck at getting the word out. All of our friends and people that we know jointly, you've never even shared this with. So I gotta come join you. And so basically, I went to him. I said, let's do this together. And I went to my wife. By the way, she was pregnant with our fourth daughter, and she didn't work full time, so she was 100% solely. We were solely dependent on my income. And I said to her, look, I really feel like God's saying, this is what we need to do. This is what the step we need to take. I'm going to quit my job cold turkey and join up with Russ to get the word out about this. And I don't know about you, but I was expecting a very different response. I was expecting almost like, what in the world are you thinking?
Yeah. Have you lost your mind? I can imagine that conversation with any wife, mine, yours. So yeah, how did that one go?
Well, instead, she looked at me square in the face. And she's like, I think you should do it. It was like without hesitation. And so that to me was really good confirmation that this is what I need to do. Russ and I joined up in 2014. And from there started to build out the process that he and I had been working out for 4 years. and started bringing other people through that same process. And we just happened to label it Wealth Without Wall Street because it summed up in a few words what exactly people would experience when they joined up with us to get to financial freedom.
So if you could sum up the Wealth Without Wall Street mentality that your wife so readily said, yes, that sounds good. I'm only assuming that it was unique enough to be interest, you get your interest, but yet not out there enough to go, hold on. Like I can pretty much guarantee that it does not involve setting up a series of offshore accounts so that, no, I mean, let's get real. It's just like, oh, well, this strategy, yeah, that I've heard of that before. And this strategy, oh yeah, but it's how we put it together and how you structure it is the magic, I would think. Right.
Well, and even more than that, Mike, what I would say is the reason why she was so quick to agree with me on this was she was experiencing a very different husband than what she had married 11, 12, 13 years before that. And that was because I was so thick in the corporate ladder, growing, influence and income, that I was less and less and less present at home. I don't know about you, Mike, but how many entrepreneurs do you work with who feel like they were going after freedom, right? And in the mortgage business, I really could run my own business. But as I did that, I really had created a job for myself. I didn't create a business. It was solely dependent on me answering that phone every time a realtor called. So when we were on vacation, I had that phone on my hip and I'd be like, hey, babe, just go ahead down to the beach. I'll catch up with you guys. I just have one quick call I have to make. And 30 minutes later, I'd join up and have apologies and, making excuses and all these other things. And she saw me trading time for money constantly and trading, being present for money. And she said, you know what you've been doing with Russ is giving us more of you. And if I can get more of you by you changing that whole lifestyle and quit sacrificing our time, that's what I'm really after. And so what Wealth Without Wall Street is really doing is giving people the path to quit trading time for money and to gain financial independence and freedom today instead of deferring life. Because Wall Street wants you to defer life and your money for as long as possible so that they can profit off of it. That's the bottom line. If we pull back the curtain, that's what's happening behind the scenes is your money is the means to their financial success, not for you.
And the most powerful resource out there that money cannot buy is that T word that you've been talking about, time, right? And attention. And I'll bet your wife, back at that example with the beach, and I know that was just hypothetical and might have even happened, but I know that
it absolutely happened.
she probably could have said, I wish you would treat us the same way that you treat those clients. I wish you would stop all things. And when you're on the phone with them, stop the presses and say, ooh, hold on, my wife's calling. I'll be back in 30 minutes. And that, as an entrepreneur, as a type A++, that is a hard thing. You're trying to build and grow, but hon, I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for the family. Yeah, but I feel like one of the learning points from the book 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss that I remember from that book is, you know what? Why work your fingers to the bone for your whole career and then go quote unquote retire? Why don't you build a business to the point that you can take these mini retirements and take 3-4 months off and go do what you're going to do now in your 40s or 50s or whatever age, and you come back and your business is humming right along and you pick right up, and then a few months later, hey, I'm taking another month off, rather than waiting till the end of whatever that timeline is. So I love that mindset of, the time and bringing that back to yourself personally and professionally.
Well, and Mike, I think what you're really just kind of resonating with the message, because our means to that end comes through passive income, right? You can't free up yourself until you replace your active income with passive income. And you have to do that. We talked through that there's really 3 steps to getting there. And the first one is really getting clear and purposeful about what you want financial freedom to look like. So you gave an example what Tim Ferriss says about how taking these mini vacations or these mini retirements 3 or 4 months out of the year, but having a goal, something that you are specifically outlining, this is what my life will look like when I'm financially free, is the very first step, because then and only then can you build the plan to get there. And what we find is most people, especially entrepreneurs, are very guilty of this, is they're so busy with all the different things, their job, their life, trying to hold up the time with their kids and their family, all the distractions of running the day-to-day business and working on the business, working in the business, all those things keep them from ever dreaming about what life would actually look like when they're free. In fact, they've quit dreaming about it because they
feel like it's unattainable.
Drowning. And so we actually walk people through a process to say, let's stop and let's dream a little bit and get very clear on what that looks like so that you build the plan to get in the right direction.
And, before one of the statements you just made me think of the old Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. But before you can begin and set that course, you've got to know what the end is in your mind and get that clarity. So I think that's such a huge thing that too many people go, ooh, wealth, let's talk money. Well, for what purpose? And where's the end? And what's the end in mind? And I think that maybe the people have the cart before the horse, and you're really kind of pulling back on the reins and going, okay, let's just make sure we're taking step number 1 in the right direction, step number 2 in the right direction.
No, I think you're great. I mean, this is so awesome. I've been able to sit here and listen to 2 you guys talk. It's refreshing, Joey. This is oftentimes he won't talk. He won't speak up. He just makes me do it. If you listen to our show, that's a complete joke. But I do appreciate what you're saying there. It is. I mean, reason I was his quote unquote advisor at that point in time. We now avoid using the word advisor. We kind of believe it's actually a really poor word, because advice is really nothing more than opinions, and everyone has one, but not everyone should take it. So I think that, when you see something that you want, what should you do? You should seek out experts. You should seek out people who are where you want to be.
Mentors.
Right. Yeah. I think finding someone that is on that journey, and what Joey saw that he wanted more of was more time, and finding the method and the path to get there is super important. And I think that that's where people reach out to us. They're seeking freedom. Joey started laying it out. I wouldn't say it was as super clear to me back then, because I was still really close to Wall Street. So I was a typical financial advisor. I actually became a certified financial planner because I thought all of that information, all of that knowledge about how Wall Street works was going to help me help my clients become financially free, which what that meant to me is that they could work as long as they possibly could, sacrifice time. And then when they got to age 65 or that magical, future age, that then they could ride off into the sunset and do whatever they wanted to, because that's what I was trained to do. And so I was training people to follow my training. And it took me about 4.5 years before the stock market crashed in the 08, 09 timeframe for me to realize that I was sitting there helping people get on a railway to nowhere, and the control and all the comfort that people were hoping for doing everything that they were doing, following the typical default plan of work harder, save more, spend less, get higher rates of return, became not whenever the market crashed and 40-50% of their money went away. And I realized that I wasn't helping people be in more control. I was actually leading them out of control.
And so it's because that tool, the financial tools or the portfolios of products and things, you were just trained, just doing, in lockstep with what you were trained to do. But it's that mindset shift. And I know back in those days, I had spent 10 plus years in the mortgage banking business as well. And I was I focused on debt restructure. So I can resonate with what you're saying there with people would come in and go, hey, we've got all this credit card debt, car loans. Let's get a, debt consolidation loan. Yay, you save $700 a month. And you ought to invest that and put that into some good vehicles. And then I know you know this, but I'm not kidding, because I would see those same people a couple, 3 years later. Hey, we need another debt consolidation. It's like you just ran your credit cards back up, and I thought we fixed that 2 years ago. And of course I'll help you, but that's my job. But it's that mindset shift of, okay, let's do this move, and then let's not do it again. I don't want to see you again. I want you to fix that spending and that debt and that mindset and those habits, so that then you do, it's like the way old days of, I forget the name of the insurance company, but it's like, you go from, anyway, you save money on your debt consolidation, and you take that $700 a month and don't just put it back in your lifestyle. You put it into some safe financial vehicles so that it's building your future. So talk a little bit about maybe some of the top strategies that you work with your clients on to once they realize this is the mindset that we now need to shift to. What specifically are you working with them to guide them to do?
Well, I love the way that you set this up, because it really, it just goes, I just point people back to the process that Joey and I use. So give you some context, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think you should ever take advice, because advice is an opinion. You should be seeking someone who's in a position where you want to be. So I only say this in the most humble way, but I say it to give context to where Joey and I are at. We sit on this podcast, not because we have to, because we want to. We create over $55,000 a month in passive income that has nothing to do with our business, has everything to do with where we put money that is coming back to us every single month with friends. And then we get to choose what to do with that, if we want to spend it or if we want to redeploy it and do it all over again. So for me, when we're sitting down with somebody and we're as a team or as an organization, we are trying to help people think and for them to think for themselves. What is it that you would want to do if you were financially free? Who do you need to be? What do you need to do that? And what will you have if you do that? And so all of those things ultimately lead to them to say, here's what I want, and this is what I'll have, and all of these things, and they get really determined in it. But then we will take them through a process that says, well, would you like to know what the biggest obstacle standing in your way, and what we have seen over the last 20 years of looking over thousands of financial statements and seeing the successful trait of those who are financially free as compared to the not. And they go, well, yeah, because that's what I want, right? Everybody wants the magic pill. They want the bullet. Would you like to know what that is, Mike? Do you know what the biggest obstacle keeping people from being financially free is?
I will say misplaced expectations.
Sure. Well, no, yes, absolutely. Information, mindset, all of that. I'm talking financially.
Okay.
There is a financial.
I'll say this: debt.
Debt is a part of it, and
it's a piece.
It's a piece of it. Lack of access to cash. That is the number one obstacle keeping people from being financially free.
Sure.
Debt's a part of that. Where they put their money, because a lot of times the financial tools that they're being told to put their money in from financial advisors, people just like I used to be, is saying, put this in this retirement vehicle, and when you're 60 or 65, it's going to be there. You're going to have it. You're going to be able to access it. They got people just like Joey that was in the mortgage industry that's saying, you know what, Mike, you need to pay your house off faster. So what we're going to do is give you this approach where you can make 2 payments a month, or even better, we'll set you up a 15-year mortgage so you can pay your mortgage off faster. Every single tool that someone's using for themselves, or maybe 529s for their kids or whatever it is, has one thing in common. They're sending all of their money away to a place that they can't access. Yeah. So we always tell people, and we've heard this for years, we just don't follow the logic, is opportunities find what? Cash. Opportunities find cash. But yet the reason why most people are the biggest obstacle from being financially free is they don't have access to any cash.
Well,
and they might have a lot of opportunity for that. Maybe they've got a high paying job, but they either mismanage it with the high debt that they have or their lifestyle. So it's that cash flow. And so they might logically know, hey guys, I would love to do that strategy you just pointed out, but I don't have the cash to do it. So it is. Yeah, I agree with you. It's the access to the cash, but many times it's not, oh, I just work an hourly wage job, so I don't have access to cash. There's that example. But many times it's the people that have dug themselves in a hole and they're paying $800 a month on a lease and $1,000 a month in, interest on credit cards. And it's like, you got to fix your cash flow problem, and now you've got access to cash to do these things we're talking about.
Well, and even more so than that, Mike, I'll tell you this. Most people that start in our process, they'll look at us kind of dumbfounded, like, well, what is this wealth without Wall Street? What do you invest in? Like they've never even thought of an opportunity outside of what the stock market or their financial advisor has ever put before them. And the reason is, it's kind of going back, that's a symptom of the underlying problem. They don't have access to cash. So if you don't have access to cash, you don't even see opportunities. But if you start putting money into your own control, which is a major step in our process, you start putting that money into a place where you can control and you have to tell it what to do, you will start educating yourself and seeing opportunities. They will be there. They've always been there. In fact, Robert Kiyosaki says that $1 million ideas and opportunities go under our noses every single day. We just can't see them because we don't have access to cash. And so once you solve that, and this is kind of going into the plan portion of our process, we then do an individualized investor DNA profile so that maybe you've not looked into all these different opportunities and you're just learning for the first time. Heck, if you'd asked Russ and I 5 years ago, we didn't know all these things. We had to start interviewing people 3 years ago and starting learning about these things. And then we applied them to, who am I as an investor, right? So maybe you love the idea of land flipping. Like Russ and I have a land flipping business. We have short-term rental business. There's all these different things you can do, but you haven't looked at it and said, does that fit who I am? The investment is not nearly as important as who you are as an investor. So why don't we start with that? And that's part of our process. We bring people through this assessment. They go through and they start to then self-identify. Well, you know what? I don't know if private lending would be good for me because of this factor or this factor or this factor. And it really boils down to whoever you are becomes the best path or the course for you to take.
But this other option you just mentioned, oh my word, that just lights me up like a fireworks. So tell me more about that. And that could be, whatever else, like you said, land flipping or this or that, I can't even swing a hammer, so I don't want to do fix and flip houses. So tell me something else. So I like that assessment for the purpose of clarity so that you've got that clear path forward for the right vehicles that have safety and all of those things that I'm confident that you preach.
Yeah. Well, for someone that's listening to this, no matter where you sit, we're always looking to try to figure out how we measure up against someone else. And you ask about tips. And so I love to try to give practical tips. My wife is really frustrated at me when I just talk conceptually and I don't give her any practical things to apply. So here's a really simple formula that you can do right now, unless you're driving. Don't try to do it right now. Just if you want to know how close are you to financial freedom, it's a really simple formula. You just take how much money you have coming in every single month from things that you don't go to work for. That would be passive income. So that could be, if you have a savings account and it gives you, 50 cents a month, whatever that number is, if you have rental property and it gives you $300 a month or $1,000 a month, no matter what that thing is for you that's coming in that you don't actually have to go to work for, it has to come in. It's not like, well, my stock in the company that I work for has gone up by $1,000. No, that doesn't count because it could go down by $1,000 the next day and it'd be gone for me. It has to come to you on a monthly basis. That would be considered passive income. If you take that number and you divide it into what your average monthly expenses are. So you have to know what your monthly expenses are, which I would So if you don't know that, that's a big problem. You should go fix that. You should go learn what that number is. But let's just say, for instance, your income, your passive income is $1,000 a month and your monthly expenses are $10,000 a month. That means you're 10% of the way there. That gives you a percentage. It gives you a visual. And you can now start setting goals off that. Where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And the thing that fires me up about that is when you set that as your standard, you can measure against that. You can see, are you actually getting closer? Because we've interviewed all the experts. We've interviewed Dr. Wade Fowle, the actual professor who's the world-renowned person to go to on what
retirement
income. On how much money someone needs to have in an account for it to last in retirement. And he sat on our show and said, well, I used to tell people it's 4%. If you had $1 million and you wanted it to last and not go to zero, guaranteed, you could take out $40,000 a year. So if you need $120,000 a year, so if you're making $10,000 a month or spending $10,000 a month, well, then you need $3 million. But then he adjusted that and said, well, that was before our government sent interest rates to zero and kept them there for 15 years. Right?
Yeah,
so
a little thing like that.
Yeah. So now he'd say it's the 3% rule. So those numbers even go up that much higher. So if you needed $120,000 a year, you need to have $4 million in an account. And what ends up happening for people is they go, well, crap, I've got 200,000 in an account. And so you're saying I got to get to 4 million before I'd have enough to replace my $10,000 a month of expenses? How long will it take me? And the answer is never. And they go,
and what will I have to sacrifice to get there?
They say, well, I'm not going to do that. But yet that's not the solution. We're seeing people in our community every single day tell us, hey, by the way, we had just an email yesterday. Hey, just want to let you guys know, I got another rental property. I'm out up to $1,600 a month. I'm a third of the way to my financial freedom goal. And he started 2 years ago. I mean, this is like, wow. We see people moving there. Hey, have this corporate attorney been, working in his job, make a couple $100,000 a year, got on this journey and said, hey, I'm going to create enough passive income. And within 3.5 years, he was able to fire his boss. These stories keep coming in every single week in our community of people because they have a very similar goal of what they want. And then they have a plan and a support team to help them get there. And that's just what I believe Wall Street has not created. They've created an arbitrary number that none of us really know what it is. And so we do exactly what they want us to do, which is put our head down, go to work for them and the companies that they're basically hawking. And they get to make all the money and the fees off of those dollars while it sits there for the next 30 to 40 years, while we give up all the things that we really wanted.
Well, I think that you paint such a huge picture of putting the control back in your own hands so that you are spending the time with the people you want to spend with and able to do it when you want and how you want. And I think, to me, hearing just some of the examples of some of the vehicles, you think about, wealth without Wall Street, I guess I would need to fill in the blank. But I'm sure you've got a whole litany list of, you could do it this way and that way, and all within safety, all moving the needle in the right direction. So I just think that is such a spectacular, literally, I guess I'll call it a mission that you guys are on, a mission to get people, woke up from the haze of 401k. Now, let's put it this way. If you're working for a company and they are matching 5% or whatever, that's money you're leaving on the table. So at least put money in there so you get some match. But if your extra money, the money that you really want for your freedom and your cash flow and passive income, to me, I think what you guys are doing is just spectacular. So thank
Mike,
you for.
Can I do one thing? I know that we're wrapping up, but I want to, if it's okay, and this is just my profile, so I want to do this just to challenge with that last statement.
Okay.
And everything you just said, I agreed with up until about 5 years ago. And I actually repeated it. And it is that a 401k is good as long as I put up to the match because it's free money.
Okay.
And it was because I didn't have a measuring stick, right? So remember, all of these things are just tools. Robert Kiyosaki says there's no good or bad investments. There's only good and bad investors, right? So I'm not going to say a 401k is bad. I'm not going to say a mutual fund is bad. A real estate investment is good or bad. None of that matters, but it all has to come back to our goal. So Mike, if you're 35 years old or you're 45 years old, and I asked you the question, when would you want to be financially free? Just give me a guess. If I would have asked you that, and I don't know how old you are, but if I would have asked you that, what would your response been to me?
To be financially free, I would say that, personally, I don't ever foresee myself sitting on the beach or playing golf for all of my days. So I would say, minimum 65, because that's what traditionally people say.
No, well, and I would say, great. Mike, financial freedom has nothing to do with sitting on a beach, because be honest, retirement is a new age word. That word didn't even exist until the late 1800s. That is modernism. That has been created for us to go to work for companies.
Well, in other words, I think a lot of people think, how soon can I stop punching the clock and doing my thing so that I can do what I want to do when I want to do it and retire? And I think that a lot of people retire and then they find they don't have that purpose and their goals. And so they go back into the workforce doing something.
Yeah. So let me restate the question then in a way that I apologize. I'm a terrible communicator. When would you like the ability to go to work only because you want to and not because you have to?
Let's say the age of 55.
And why did you choose 55?
Because you didn't like 65.
Well, no, but here's the point: is that goes into, I think, training of our thought process. But if we really got honest with ourselves, is it like, did I choose 55 because I didn't think, if I was 35 because I didn't think it was possible before then? Well, maybe that's the situation. Did I choose 55 because I'm 50 and in 5 years, I think, man, that's a good 5-year goal. And I don't know the answer for you. So my point to this whole question, when you said a 401k, so for me, I'm 44 years old. And before I was financially free, if you would have asked me, when would you like to go to work only because you want to? Because I love what I do. I never see us quit doing what we're doing, but only because you want to and not because you have to. And so many entrepreneurs who are listening to this right now know exactly what we're talking about. They go to work because they have to. My wife was a dentist for 10 years. She hated her job by the end of it because she had to go.
Yep.
When she had the opportunity to leave or stay because she wanted to, she chose to leave because she thought that was more important. So here's my point to that, is to say, if we want to be able to get to the point where we can choose to go because we want that as soon as possible. Most of the people, when they go through this process with it, they say, I want it as soon as possible. And I say, you don't mean you don't want it after age 60? And they go, well, heck no. So for the person who says to me that I want it as soon as possible, then I would say, okay, then let's look at what you're doing with money. You're putting money in a 401k. When can you access that money? And they say, well, I can't access it until I'm 60. I go, is that when you want to be financially free? And they said, no, I'll be financially free today. And I go, okay, how is what you're doing matching up with what you want? Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with a match. It has nothing to do with the return of the investment. It has nothing to do with taxes. It has everything to do with what you're doing matching up with what you want. And I think so many people end up doing things that are not what they want because they think that that's what they're supposed to do. Yeah. So that's the reason I challenge that, because I want to challenge the way people are thinking. Do you have a goal? And then is everything you do matching up with that goal? So if your goal is, I want to be financially free when I'm 65, great. Then a 401k may be perfect for you because you're not going to be able to access it until you're 60 anyway. So perfect.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big thing that a lot of people don't, do is that clarity exercise. At what age really would that be? And what age are you now? And are you doing the things now to get there? Not from the long term. You might have 10, 15 years out from that certain age, but look at it, if you break it down, year by year, are you doing something this month and this year that is going to move you closer to that goal? And if the answer is question mark, then maybe you need to clarify that. And to me, that's one of the biggest ahas that we're talking about here, is really getting clear on that path forward.
Well, and Mike, you hit the nail on the head, but the piece that you left out is the company that you keep. The people that you surround yourself with are the ones you're going to become more like. And most people do not have a support system or a community of people who are saying, hey, you should believe this crazy stuff that you could be financially free as soon as possible, not when you're 65. And that's what we've created with Wealth Without Wall Street. By the way, I'd love for anybody that's listening that wants to kind of get on this path. If they want to be a part of this community, do you mind if I share basically a link for people to join?
Definitely. I will also put it in the show notes, and I will probably be, as soon as we finish this interview, I will probably be one of the first to jump on as well, because I'm loving what you're dishing out.
Well, we'd love to have you guys as a part of this. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/community. You join for free, and then you can download the app in the App Store, which makes it just right there at your fingertips. You get updates from us. You can join in the conversation. There are courses you can join. There's all sort of things like that you learn from the folks we have on our podcast. It's all in one place. More than 4,000 people have already joined, so we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap up with that, because that just really, really was a spectacular opportunity to join people that are, on the same path. And I'm sure that with you guys guiding in that community, then whoever was it, Jim Rohn, that said, you will become like the 5 most people you're around with the most, and the books you read. So I think when you can surround yourself with people that are doing it, that are on the same level as you, as well as look ahead to the people that have done it, like you guys, then that way that gives you that clear path forward. So I encourage everyone to check that out. And I really thank you guys both for your time today on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, our pleasure, Mike. Thanks.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.